Welcome to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast, where we help you in the LGBTQ plus community find a safe and affordable retirement place. Join Mark Goldstein as he interviews others who live in gay-friendly places around the globe. Learn about the climate, cost of living, healthcare, crime and safety, and more. Now, here's your host, Mark Goldstein.
Today, we're going to take you to a very popular city for immigrants, especially for immigrants and expats, Lisbon, Portugal. Our special guests are Kelley McBride and Timm McBride, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. They've been together since 2004. Timm says that he met Dan at a dance in Portland, Oregon, and they kept on bumping into each other until they were both single and available. That's an interesting story. They've been together ever since, for better or for worse. While living in Portland, Oregon, they married in Victoria, British Columbia in 2005 because, as Dan says, we had to do it in a civilized country. Oh boy. In 2013, after many long discussions, they sold their home in Portland, their favorite place to date, in the Mid Century Fontaine Tower in Northeast Lloyd Center. They made the big move to Palm Springs and thought after 3 home renovations, they were done. 3 home renovations? Really?
Yeah.
In 9 years.
Wow. Enter COVID-19. It changed everything, according to Timm. He was working in live theater and through COVID was unemployed for 19 months. Dan was working in healthcare and pain management, and the COVID scares and restrictions took the toll on him as well. Suddenly, that dream of working to 70 and maxing out their Social Security payout didn't seem worth it. In 2021, after months of research and several false starts, they made their way to Portugal to see if it was something that was even worth pursuing. On landing in Lisbon, they were enamored by everything: the history, the architecture, the people, the kindness, the international population. It was heaven for them. After a week in Lisbon, they traveled to Porto for a week, and although both fell in love with it, the climate was just too close to what they felt left behind in Portland. The Algarve was also an option, but it was a little too nomadic and touristy, kind of like a Palm Springs they were thinking of leaving behind. As they sat in their chairs, sipping an Arapol spritz in the Miradoro de San Pedro de Alcantara on the last day, Timm said, "I don't want to go home." Over the years, they have both been on the same page when it came to big decisions like that. And that was all Dan needed to hear, as he was sold as well. They went home, sold everything, and returned in March of 2022 with 11 suitcases, their 13-year-old deer Chihuahua Bubba, and 2 pallets of artwork and Christmas decorations, along with some sentimental items, and started all over. And the adventure continues. Welcome, boys. Thank you for joining us today on the podcast. And tell us, why Lisbon or why Portugal? Did you visit any other places before, or you just, when you went to Portugal, you said, this is it?
It's funny because during COVID, that fantasy of traveling, going anywhere, just kept popping up. And Dan had said, well, when this all lifts, we should take a big trip somewhere. So he's kind of the process guy and the kind of the deep researcher. And so he started just looking at everything in Portugal, everywhere he went, and on every website I would say that you went on, Portugal kept popping up, and it would bubble to the top and bubble to the top. And finally one day he just said, I think we need to go to Portugal and see what it's all about. And that's how we settled on it. And that just started everything.
And when you got there, you toured Portugal. Like you said, when you went to Porto, you went to Lisbon and the Algarve.
Right.
And you just decided that Lisbon was the place.
All of those areas had some really nice advantages to them. We could live in any one of those parts of the country, but we just chose that we would prefer to live in a more of a city environment and be right on the ocean in a little more temperate environment than the northern part of the country.
It's one of those things too. I'd spent the majority of my adult life in cities, and I said, if we're going to do this, I got to be in a city. I've just got to be in a city, and that was a great start for us.
Totally understand. I'm the same way. I'm an urbanite. So coming from Brooklyn, New York, I know exactly what you mean. So tell the audience, geographically speaking, where is Lisbon located within Portugal? And do you have beaches that you can walk to or travel to? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, Lisbon is the westerly most city in Europe. And so right along the west coast of the country, midway between the north and the south coastlines, and it's almost on the ocean, but not quite. The Tejo River comes in from the Atlantic Ocean, and Lisbon is probably 25 miles or so inland from the ocean. Yet down here on the south beach where we live of the Tejo River, we are probably only maybe a 20 or 30-minute drive from some really nice beaches, some of the nicest beaches on the Atlantic Ocean in the entire country.
Wow. That sounds really nice. So it's 30-minute drive to the beaches, to the nice beaches?
About that, yes.
Are there any beaches walkable?
Not from here, not from where we are in Almada, but if you get into an Uber and get out to Costa de Caparica, there's how many miles of beach is it? 7 miles
I think beaches? 7 miles of beaches.
And one of the most famous beaches out there is Beach 19, which is where the gays are. So
where the boys are. Beach 19, have to remember that.
And then between Lisbon and Cascais, once you get closer down to the ocean, then the beaches start popping up as well. There's Estoril, there's Carcavelos Beach, which we've been to a couple times. So it's kind of like where all the locals go. You always can tell when it's a beach day because everybody's getting on the train to head that way with their umbrellas and their towels and their bags.
Okay, so there is public transportation also that you
can
take to the beaches?
Yes, there sure is. It's a great place to live for public transportation because you can get almost anywhere you want to very easily.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit, what's the climate like? We're in Lisbon as opposed to Porto and opposed to the Algarve. What's Lisbon's climate like?
Lisbon's just a little more temperate than either one of the other parts of the country. Porto tends to be more cool, both in the summer and the winter, and more rainy, drizzly, and a lot like our Pacific Northwest in the United States. And down in the Algarve, it's more sunny most of the time, a little bit warmer in the summer and the winter, both. But not to an extreme. It's not like Palm Springs, where you've got a 3-digit weather to deal with on a regular basis. But here in
Phoenix,
right, exactly. But here in Lisbon, it's up into the mid 80s at the height of the heat in the summer, and we haven't been here through a winter yet, so I can't tell you how cold it's going to get. But there is a little rainy period during the winter as well.
Does your house have heat?
Our apartment, even though it is a completely brand new renovation inside, has no heat or air conditioning built in. So we have a couple of portable heat pumps that we use, and they do a satisfactory job. They do just fine.
But that's pretty standard for most places here in the Lisbon area. Most of the older places do not have heat or air conditioning. Many have added in. It's mainly the new construction that does the big, what would you call American builds with the open concept, big gourmet kitchen, heating and air conditioning and all of that. I mean, the rest of the places is that standard Lisbon architecture where there's rooms with doors.
Right.
Everything has rooms with doors so you can hold the heat in or, keep the cold out or whatever you want.
You know what? To tell you the truth, if I were moving from the U.S. to Portugal and Lisbon especially, I don't know if I would want a U.S., design. I want to live the life of, the Portuguese. That's me.
I think that's the thing that we talked about, because that was the whole thing when we were researching and then decided to move and everything. And it's like, how do we want to do this? And so we watched a lot of YouTube videos and HGTV and House Hunters and all that stuff. And it came down to, though, for us, is do we want to change where we live, or do we want to change our lives?
Right.
And to change where we live, which means we bring all that stuff with us and we find something exactly like we've had in the United States. To change our lives means you just kind of let everything go and you start over and you do it the way everybody else lives here.
Yeah, it's like a refresh.
Yeah, it is. It's a reboot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So does Lisbon have a large expat community? And have you made friends with any expats or locals? And what's the community like? Are people, friendly?
There's a pretty strong expat community here, not only from the United States, but from Brazil, UK, Germany, all around Europe. Every time we go to a meetup dinner meeting or a happy hour that's sponsored by one of the expat groups, we meet and talk to people from all over the world. It's really interesting and exciting to see and talk with people from all over with all kinds of different life experiences than we have had.
Do you find that people that go to these little meetup groups, do they generally speak English? Because I would kind of find it a little bit difficult if everybody spoke their own, native tongue. And what they say,
English is probably the most common language spoken amongst all the expats. It has never really been a problem. In fact, I joined a primarily Portuguese men's yoga group, and it is taught in English. And everybody in the group at least speaks enough English to get by. Although when they get all excited and start talking away, they often forget that I'm there and revert back to Portuguese. And then somebody has to translate for me because I haven't picked up enough to be conversational yet.
I think it's safe to say in the cities primarily that anyone under 50 is pretty well versed in English. Until the revolution in 1974, it wasn't really a priority to teach people English. So there's a lot of older people our age that aren't really conversational. It's, you ask people, that's the first question when we go to a store or something, and you say, fala inglés, and they'll say poco poco, which means a little bit. Or if they just say Portugués, then it means no, I speak no English whatsoever, and it's going to be fun. But for the most part, people default to English in the cities. They want to practice. But when you get out to like where we are in Ahmad and the surrounding areas too, that happens less and less often, which kind of forces you then, okay, we got to focus on the language.
Right. So, yeah, if you lived in, is it Coimbra? Or in that area, in the mid area, and it's kind of rural there.
Right.
I would think more people just speak Portuguese and less English there. So it would just make sense. And Lisbon is a fairly large city. Do you know what the population is, by the way?
I'm not sure what it is in Lisbon.
Lisbon proper was like around 475, I thought it was, just the city itself. But then that's not accounting for the outlying areas. Yeah, it's such an international city. I mean, the last couple of weeks taking friends around, and you hear, of course you hear English, but you hear Portuguese, you hear German, you hear Russian, you hear Greek, you hear everything under the sun.
Yeah,
and it's just so amazing. I love it. It's great to go out like that.
And I'm sure you go to the restaurants and, if you're in a touristy place, the hotels and restaurants, they all speak English as well. And, if they say poco poco, that means they're fluent. They probably know. And they start speaking. They want you to speak English because they want to learn English too.
That does happen a lot.
But we find now that we're not really tourists any longer, we kind of, when we're on our own, we tend to avoid the marketplaces and the restaurant rows where the tourists go. We have a couple favorite places where we take friends, for a meal or for dinner, but we like to go out exploring a little bit further out or off the beaten path. You can really immerse yourself in the culture and what's out there. And it's often the difference too between being on restaurant row where you're going to order a dinner for 14 or 18 or 20 euros versus walking another 6 or 8 blocks somewhere else and getting nearly the same thing for maybe €5 or €6.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, so we tend to eat like the locals, and we find the local places.
So out of these groups, these expat groups that you've met, have you actually made friends with some of these people and keep in contact with them and
Yeah, I think so.
out with them separately and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
A few times in some cases. And in the case of my yoga group, I went to a weekend retreat with them last weekend. And for the first time doing something that includes more social time than just class time, which was really nice to be able to get to know some more of the locals better than I had before.
And then we have a couple of American friends that we've made that are in the process of moving or have moved or are here quite a bit. And so we do see them regularly. But then just kind of like saying how it's kind of serendipitous to meet people. Since we're coming over to the States for 2 weeks, we joined a group called Trusted House Sitters, where you go through and they're vetted people that go through and they'll come and take care of your dog or your house.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I've heard of that.
But we met this house sitter who's coming in for 2 weeks to take care of our house, and I said to Dan, I love her. I absolutely love her. I want to stay in touch with her when we're done. I don't want this to be a one-off. She lives here in Lisbon, and she's just trying to get a taste for it. And so she came over this afternoon, and it's like, God, she is just so amazing. And she's from Romania, and she speaks fluent English. She's been in Lisbon for 10 years, but that's just kind of how you meet people, and just it's all serendipitous.
Yeah, it sounds great. So when you go back to the States, do you leave your doggie home?
Yeah, he'll stay here.
And she'll come in every day?
She'll live here. She'll stay here.
She'll live here.
Yeah, she'll actually live in our place for the 2 weeks while we're gone.
Well, that's a good deal. I've done that with pet sitters before.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we have a friend of ours that will come in, like for an overnight or for 2 days or something. But this is something big, and it's kind of like, I want to see how this works. Because if it works great, then I want to take advantage of it and travel.
I'm curious as of price comparisons, because we spend a fortune here in the States for a house sitter that just stays for a week or two. Could I ask you how much you're paying approximately for the 2 weeks?
This is the cool thing. They want to see this area. They come here and stay. And as compensation for getting to stay at our home or not having to pay to stay in a hotel, they take care of our dog.
That is the perfect solution. I love that.
Yeah. So that allows us the opportunity to go to another place that we want to travel and do the same thing. And then, of course, there's an annual fee for being a member of the group. But
it's €179, which, oh my gosh, you spend that one night in a hotel.
But she lives in the area?
Yeah, she's new to this. She's taking care of friends' pets. She just broke up with her boyfriend. She wants to travel. And she came across this Trusted House Sitters and said, well, I'd like to see how it works. So why don't I do something kind of like do a house sitting gig kind of with training wheels? Because I live in Lisbon. So why don't I just go across the river for 2 weeks and see how it works out and if I like it?
That's
awesome. We're a stepping off point for her.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's how it works. So it's kind of, they'll just come in and they'll take care of our place and they'll stay here and go do their exploring or whatever. But yeah, we don't pay a salary or anything.
That is awesome. And then you can also, I guess, do videos back and forth on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
She'll take a picture of the doggie and stuff like that.
Yeah, we talked about that. WhatsApp, Google Voice, all of that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. All right. So speaking of pets, how did you transport your pet here? Was it in the cabin or?
Yes, it was in the cabin of the aircraft with us. Bubba's about 13 pounds, and I think the limit was about 15 pounds. So as long as they're not too big and not too heavy, and you can get them in a carrier that will fit under the seat, and they meet all the requirements for international travel, then you can take them on the plane with you.
That's great. Yeah, that's one of my worries is getting my 75-pound lab onto a plane, and she's not going to fit in the front of my seat.
No.
She would either have to go cargo, or we would transport her specially, through a special pet transport plane that would actually seat her in the plane, not underneath. and with all the other, pets.
Yeah, there are some options for that. Obviously, if you can bring them on the plane with you, that's the easiest and
That's
least
the best.
expensive. But a lot of people do put them down in a pet hold under the plane. But we were thankful that we didn't have to do that.
And we were lucky too, because coming over in March, we were still in the throes of COVID travel. The seating on the plane, we weren't crammed into seats. So coming over, we had the entire center row, which was 5 seats for the two of us. And so I just scooted down a seat, got Bubba's carrier, put him up on the seat between us. So he got to at least know that we were with him. He got to see us.
Right.
He could open the little zipper thing and pet his head for a little while and just kind of reassure him. So I think that helped quite a bit as well.
And you said you came to Portugal and Lisbon during COVID. Weren't they in a lockdown?
We didn't come at the height of COVID.
Okay.
Once travel restrictions, this trip, the initial trip that we made a year ago, was rescheduled 3 times, was it?
Yes, and it was before the Omicron variant became widespread. So there was a little period there where they kind of lifted some of the restrictions. We had to be vaccinated and tested and all that good
It
stuff.
was Delta when we were here, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was still the Delta variant.
And it was one of those days we were sitting in a restaurant and somebody says, "Oh, surprise, there's a new variant. You may have to go home." And it was like, crap.
Oh, please.
But,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm tired. I'm tired of variants. I'm tired of COVID. I'm tired of monkeypox. I was like, I just got monkeypox vaccine. Yeah, all that stuff. But anyway, tell the audience, does Lisbon have like a gayborhood, or is it pretty much integrated into everything? Do they have gay bars? What's the scene?
Yeah, here in Lisbon, we don't have a WeHo or a East Village or a Boys Town or anything like that. We're everywhere. It's a really great city in that regard, that it is such an open, spread out area. Now there is an area called the Bairro Alto, which is an area concentrated, and that's probably where you find the majority of the gay bars and clubs. And funny enough, they're not like huge, giant West Hollywood, Chicago, New York bar spaces. They're a lot smaller, more intimate, a lot more specialized. There's kind of a bear bar, there's a leather bar, there's a Mexican bar, there's a kind of piano-ish bar, there's a drag bar. So there's smaller spaces. It's not on the grand scale that you would find of anything in the United States. It's kind of like a less is more thing. But
Right.
It's still there, and it's like nobody. That's the one thing I love about being here is they don't care if you're gay. They don't care, that my husband and I, sleep in the same bed. Nobody cares. Are you a nice person? Are you enjoying yourself here? Do you contribute to the society as a whole? That's what we want here. So that's one of the things that we really love about the city too. There's no, like Palm Springs, a gay bubble. You don't live in that gay bubble. I mean, it's all around you. So that's one of the things we really like.
Yeah, that everything is integrated and people take you for what you are. That's the way it really should be everywhere. But unfortunately, we know that doesn't exist everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good feeling when you guys hold hands down the street, or
Not a lot, although it is acceptable. I mean, people do it. Nobody seems to bother them. In fact, there was a video of a gay couple that we saw on YouTube that were testing the water, and they were walking around holding hands in different neighborhoods and see what kind of reaction they got. And for the most part, they didn't get any kind of reaction.
I think I saw that on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've been watching them myself.
But the thing is, too, though, walking around at night, I mean, if we come out of a bar or come out of a restaurant at 11 or 12 at night and we're walking to the subway or we're walking to the boat to come back across the water, it's not threatening. No, I feel completely safe. Yeah, and the other funny thing about that is we were talking the other day with our friend Robert, and I said, since I've been here, I said, we've gone to, concerts, and we've gone to the theater, and we've gone to the movies, and not once since I've been here do I walk into a room and go, okay, there's an exit there, there's an exit there, there's an exit there, and I can get behind this.
Well, that's what I always do here.
Yeah, I haven't done that since we've been here, so that speaks volumes to me about how safe and secure the city is.
That's awesome, and for the fact that you really don't have in the back of your mind that is somebody going to get shot
Yeah.
because they don't have guns,
Yeah.
right?
There's just not a lot of that around here. It's very rare that you hear of a shooting anywhere.
We had one a couple of weeks ago and it was all over it was like front page news on the papers.
Are guns outlawed?
From what I understand, they're not exactly outlawed, but they're very highly regulated, so not very many people have them.
Okay, for hunting purposes and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but not just to have one in the house that if someone, knocks on your front door, you get shot.
Exactly.
Or there's no open carry like here in
Oh,
Phoenix.
God. No, not at all.
Yeah.
And people ask us about that kind of stuff, and it's like, it's like, you guys are all cowboys, and everybody carries guns. Everybody has to have a gun in the U.S. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty stupid.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I'm not really used to that coming from New York City. And then moving, to Arizona, it's kind of like different. They hear it's a little bit different. Open carry is acceptable, not in my eyes, but in a lot of other people's eyes, unfortunately. Okay. Tell us what the local economy is like. What do you pay in housing costs? Do you rent or did you buy?
Well, when we first came over here, we rented an apartment for the first year. And it was about 1,200 square feet, right in the heart of downtown Lisbon, right on the subway line. So we had ready access to public transportation and all that. And it was about $1,100 a month, 1,100 euros, which is about 1-to-1 these days anyway.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. It was remodeled inside, no heat or air conditioning, but there was plenty of space and it was a comfortable place. But being in the middle of the city, it was kind of chaotic and noisy, and ambulances and fire trucks up and down the street all night long.
And we had to buy all of our appliances.
Yeah, it's a little different renting there.
You had to buy your appliances.
We had to buy all the appliances, even the kitchen appliances. I had a stove in there, but we had to buy everything else. But once you buy your appliances, you've got them.
So do you take them with you?
Oh yeah.
So we took them with us. So we bought this condo over here in Almada, just across the river, and it also didn't have appliances. We sort of made a deal with them when we bought it that we would bring all of our appliances in, and they would not supply any appliances. So we got to bring all of our appliances in with us. But buying a property here isn't difficult. You don't have to be a citizen. You can be just a resident like we are. And the terms and conditions are a little bit different. A lot of things are less expensive. Insurance is a lot less expensive here. It's a few $100s a year rather than a few $100s a month.
Property taxes are so low. I mean, and you don't roll in your insurance and your property taxes. You don't roll all that into your house payment. You pay that up front when you buy it. You pay your VAT tax on the property when you buy it, and you pay those once a year.
Are you allowed to mortgage?
Yes, you can do that. Although the rules are different here. They don't like to loan to anyone that's over 75 years old. So if you're 65,
I can't really blame them.
If you're 65, you might get a 10-year loan.
Gotcha.
They do make some exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's all they do.
I understand. How about electric costs?
Their rates are a little bit higher for most kinds of energy, whether that's gasoline, diesel, which they use a lot of, and for electric and natural gas. But overall, our rates aren't much higher than we would pay in the States. In fact, in a lot of cases, less. The apartments are smaller, the appliances are smaller. We don't have central heating and air conditioning, so the bills really aren't very high. And on top of that, your other costs on things like cable TV and internet and Wi-Fi and cell phones and all that stuff are far less than we're used to in the U.S.
Okay. Give us an example. What do you pay in electric bills?
Electric is probably $75 to $80 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment that's all electric.
And that's with no air and no heat, right?
Well, that's with a portable air conditioner. Oh. So we do run air conditioner some, but not consistently.
Not much.
Not like we did in Palm Springs.
Oh no, or here in Phoenix.
All day, every day. Yeah.
And I must ask you, since you buy your appliances, what type of refrigerator did you get? Is it a European small
Oh
in the
yeah.
fridge.
Yeah, it
and
has to
not
fit in the space.
and
So
not the big humongo US slide freezer out and double door.
Hide Jimmy Hoffa's body in the freezer. Yeah,
Right.
not one of those. No.
yeah, it's probably 28 or 30 inches wide versus the 36-inch that we're used to. But I got the tallest one that would fit in the space. So it's relatively large for a European refrigerator, but it's still smaller than any other refrigerator we've ever had.
Did it take time to get used to it?
No.
Not really, because so much more of our shopping is done on a kind of a daily basis. We don't stock up on a lot of foods. We don't have a freezer full of things like we used to. We eat a lot of fresh food. We pick it up at the store on the way home, a couple days worth at a time, maybe.
It's totally different because during COVID, it's like Thursday was my marketing day. So I'd go online and order it from Ralph's or Walmart or wherever and, pick up my bags of groceries and you stock up for the week. Well, we don't have the capacity here to do that with a refrigerator, with a pantry, that kind of thing. So you don't buy 10-pound bags of sugar and 10-pound bags of flour and
There's no Costco.
No, and
Nope.
you don't. And the thing is too, though, like when you buy peanut butter and jelly, you get the little pint jar, equivalent to pint jars. So you don't get these jumbo economy, saving things. You don't get the double, triple bags of chips. You don't any of that stuff. It's not like that at all. So it took a little bit of finagling, and finessing, but when you go shopping, it's not like you just go to it's not one-stop shopping, because I'll go to the supermarket to stock up on kind of like the things you would get at the market. But then there's the talo, which is the meat market right behind that. So then I'll go get, beef and chicken and pork, fresh cuts there. Up the street is the Mercado, which opens at 7:00, which always has the fresh catch of the day there, and vegetables. And if I miss that, then there's a Frutaria Loja across the street, which is the Chinese market, which they bring in fresh fruits and vegetables. And the thing is, too, it's like unlike the American supermarkets, they don't have all the pretty apples and all the pretty carrots. And, these things are just picked and gone. Yeah.
Right, because there's no chemicals on them.
Right. But
Right.
as an example, I can tell you we had friends for dinner, and there were 4 of us for dinner. Fresh chicken, fresh vegetables, salad, wine, and I think for the entire meal, buying everything fresh that morning, I think I spent maybe like 17 euros.
Wow.
And we
That's
had a
amazing.
feast for dinner. Yeah, and the fresh bread every day is awesome.
So the Mercado, is that like the fresh market where they have all these different stands
Yeah.
in there, and you can go buy seafood, you can buy meat, you can buy vegetables,
Right.
and stuff like that in there?
Fruits. Then there's a butcher across the street that they have a deal with that they don't sell meat in there, and the butcher doesn't sell fish, so there's an agreement there. There's a place in there where you can buy fresh cut flowers. There's a cheese place that brings in fresh cheeses from like Alentejo for you get a great rounded cheese for €1.50. It's amazing.
Wow.
And the thing is, everything tastes so amazing. The chicken tastes like chicken tasted when you were a kid. And the tomatoes have that flavor, and the lettuce has an awesome flavor, and the onions are sweet, and I've never seen anything like it.
How long have you been there?
7 months now.
And I don't know if it takes 7 months or not, but do you feel healthier by eating the Mediterranean foods at all? Or
I think
you don't have a
so.
difference?
Because we don't have a car, we do use mass transit all the time, but we still have to walk a lot. How many steps did we walk today?
Before we got going, just going to the airport and back, we did 10,000 steps. So that was by 8:30 this morning.
Wow.
So we walk a lot. Our cardiovascular health is probably better, and I know that we're better for the foods that we eat. I think we both lost some weight, even though that hasn't been a goal. We're not trying to.
Right.
I think it's just a consequence of eating better and living healthier.
I think the medications too that we used to take, neither one of us really took any major health related medications, but there's little things for
Like heartburn and stuff.
Like that. And, for me, for asthma and for things like that, don't take them as much. It's more as needed now. You
When I
know,
worked every day, I had more headaches than I do now. I
There
hardly
you
ever
go.
get a headache anymore.
yeah, he
There
used
you
to have
go.
migraines all the time. He doesn't have them. And we go to sleep at night and we just drop off. And I've been a 6 a.m. riser ever since I can remember, getting up for school and then, college and work and everything. We don't usually roll over till about 8 a.m. now. And
Oh,
it's
that's
like,
great.
oh my God.
Oh, I can't wait for that day. I still have the 3:45 a.m. wake ups at
Oh,
most of the time. So I am so looking forward to that day where I say bye bye.
Well, pick that day and put a pin in it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm in the midst of doing that right now. Tell us about a little bit about the arts and culture scene. Is there one in Lisbon? I'm sure since it's a
There,
big city.
there is, and that's one of the big things for me because I've done a lot of theater and performance. Dan's been involved quite a bit with men's choruses in Portland and Palm Springs, and I've been very involved with the theater scene in Palm Springs. So that was really important to make sure that there was something there. There's a great regional theater. We've been there to see a musical. It was all in Portuguese, but it was still very entertaining.
But that's one another thing. So that's my feeling. If I went to a Portuguese theater, I would kind of have to just it's like subtitles, sort of. You have to kind of you know
Right. Well,
think about it.
when they advertise the musical, it's a musical by David Yazbek based on Pedro Almodovar's Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. It's really big with Patti LuPone when it ran on Broadway. And it says with subtitles. And we're like thinking, this is great. That'll be fine. It'll be like going to the opera or something, you run that. And the reader board across the top says, Peppa goes to Candela's apartment. Boom. And this whole thing's all in Portuguese, but it's great. We loved it.
But they also have some English-speaking live
Yeah.
theater too, so it's not all in
Oh, wow.
Portuguese.
There's a group here called the Lisbon Players, which has been here since 1947. It's primarily a British theater company. And we did go to one of their shows last year. It was a two-man show, An Englishman Abroad, which was very well done. There's also the concert series. We went to a candlelight concert, which was focused on the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber. So it was a small string orchestra. It was absolutely beautiful. It was more of in a lecture hall, but it was all candle lit. And it was about an hour concert. And tickets were 20 euros.
Wow.
I think and then Michael Bublé is coming in January to the big theater. So we're
Nice.
just kind of looking at that. They do have music festivals on in Cascais and some of the outlying areas. I know Coimbra has some stuff going on in the summertime. So there's opportunities for all of that, to see all of that. And there's some great immersive things that are here too.
Oh, great. We can all get our culture fix if we come to
Yeah,
Lisbon.
I think so.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay. How about movies? Do they have movie theaters? Then they have, some places, some countries do have like maybe in a big city, one movie theater that might have an English movie.
Yeah,
a
they do.
movie
They
in
have
English.
multiplexes in some of the malls. They have some really nice, beautiful, typical American style shopping malls here with movie theaters in them. And if it's an American movie, it will be in English with Portuguese subtitles, which helps us learn the language. And then they also have some Portuguese movies and other movies as well in their own languages.
So who's learning the Portuguese out of you two?
Tim's been to classes and I haven't yet. So he's
I'm
ahead
the
of
same
me.
way. I'm the same way. My husband's learning Spanish and he's ahead of me because he's retired and I'm still working. That's my excuse.
It is so hard. It is such a hard language to learn, but it's one of those, and when we first got here, we were kind of like winging it here with, a video here and a video here. And so when you speak to people, they kind of look at you like when you talk to the dog and they kind of do this, they tilt their head a little bit and what. And then I took a 5-week class at a language school, which kind of got the basics, showed me where my weak spots were. And then we got into this big move and everything. So I think when we come back from the States, I want to kind of focus on maybe some one-on-one stuff. But we went shopping today and we communicated pretty well in basic Portuguese, our needs. And, we can go to the store, we can go to a restaurant, we can go to the movies, we can talk to somebody and ask a question in a store. So it's, we're not fluent by any means. We're like the special people down the street, but but people are the thing is, if you try, people are so happy that you're even just trying,
Yeah.
and they'll all come back and say, you're doing, muito bem. You're doing a great job, and it's very difficult to learn. And even if they don't speak much English, they'll always compliment you on
it.
and they'll always compliment you on trying.
Yeah.
So it's
that's
great.
At least they recognize that, you are trying, and they love that.
They do. And I feel, it's motivation too, to keep going.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like I say, when I go into a store now, I don't sweat anymore. So it's kind of.
And I like your little Portuguese accent there. You pronounce the words very well.
Muito obrigado.
We're trying.
Yeah. So you guys foodies? What is the restaurant scene like in Lisbon? Are there many 5-star Michelin restaurants
there actually are? How many was it?
34.
34
Wow.
Michelin rated restaurants, and of all different varieties. There's a lot of international foods here. Some of the best foods are the international foods, Italian and Indian food, even good American foods.
Yeah.
But the Portuguese food has its own distinctive flavors. It's not super spicy. So if you're into spicy Mexican food or hot Indian food, it may taste a little bland even.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But there's a lot of good foods and restaurants here.
The thing about Portuguese food is more like comfort food. A lot of fish, a lot of vegetables, a lot of salads. So it's not like this. It's not like high cuisine where it's the spectacular show and the presentation. It's good, healthy, hearty food. It fills you up, has a flavor, it does its thing. Now there's other places that we go. We just went to a restaurant called Jesus of Goa, which was a Portuguese Indian fusion restaurant. Oh my God.
Oh man.
Oh my God. Amazing flavors. Oh, spicy and flavorful. And then we went for lunch to Ponta Final, which is a restaurant that a lot of people see on video. And when they come to Lisbon, they want to go to Ponta Final. And we were walking around and it's, oh my gosh, they do lunch too. Let's go. So we just walked down there, and I think Robert had a stingray soup. Stingray soup and grilled
sardines.
Yeah, and then we had we ordered a pork salad. When you say salad, it's kind of like ground or shredded beef on a bed of lettuce with vegetables. This was cooked pork chopped up in olive oil with garlic and greens. Very good. And then the dessert was that awesome meringue with mango sauce. Oh my God.
So they do come up with some real zingers once in a while. But this place he's talking about, Ponta Final, is right on the river. I mean, you're sitting right next to the river. You could dip your toe in the water while you're drinking a glass of wine and eating sardines.
Oh, nice.
With a beautiful view out toward the river.
And a view of the city. And a view
of Lisbon.
Excellent. And do they have a menu of the day, like lunchtime?
Prata del dia, yeah. Almost every place has
Most
that.
places do that. And I think it's probably related to whatever the catch of the day is, whatever they bring in from the market that morning.
Because I know Spain's restaurants, they have the menu del dia.
Right.
It's the menu of the day, and it's usually for lunch, and it's 3 courses, and either coffee or wine or beer, and maybe even a dessert, and it's like nothing, and it's 12 euros.
Yeah,
15 euros.
We found a little restaurant in downtown Ramada, and we were walking by, and it said Prata del dia, prawns with rice or shrimp with rice. And you went upstairs, and it was this little. It was like a little private club that they had a restaurant in, and it was actually a Mozambique restaurant, and they cooked this shrimp in coconut and butter with salad, with potatoes, with rice, with a coffee or what they call a bica, which is a small spout of coffee with sugar. And I think it had dessert, and it was €7.50.
€7.50. €7.50.
Yeah.
And it was some of the best shrimp I've ever had in my life.
That is
It was
amazing.
amazing.
But
And it's just a short walk from where we live here.
but because of the influence of Portugal, Portugal, it was Brazil and Tomar and Mozambique and parts of Africa. Those cultures are here too. So there's little places that you can just find by accident, and
Right.
some of the most amazing food. You got to be, I think, to be here though, you've got to kind of have this mentality of say yes.
Yep. Just try everything.
Just try it.
Just
Yeah.
try it.
Try it
If you
once.
don't like it, okay, you don't have to come back.
Well, it's kind of like Dan had to step away. It's kind of what did Mae West say when it comes to the lesser of two evils? I take the one I haven't done before, and I'm kind of a more picky eater than Dan is. But just to try and say yes to everything,
Right.
just really open up the experience.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so as far as, can you walk to restaurants? And do the restaurants also, are they outdoor cafes? Are they indoor? Kind of explain that a little bit.
It's a mix of everything. I mean, where we are, we're above a little area in Ahmad called Casillas, and that's a little street town off the river. Dates back to maybe about 1100, and all the buildings are very, very old. But there's maybe 25 or 30 restaurants. You can eat inside when the weather's nice. You eat outside on the weekends. There's street musicians. So it's almost like a big community place to go. You can go to the other restaurants in town and eat a lovely meal at an indoor restaurant as well. We walk, we ride, we bus, we boat, wherever it takes us. And
Wow.
and that's the other thing about living here is we were very conscious about not wanting to have a car.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
never been a problem.
Yeah, when we move, if we do move to Europe, we don't plan on having a car as well.
Yeah.
We want to live in a city where we can get around, great transportation, so on and so forth. Still on the food scene,
Yeah.
tell us about wine.
They have, well, of course, they're very well known for port wine, which is in the north up in Porto. They have their selection of wines. It's not like you can go to the store and get a Cabernet, a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Merlot or something like that. But you can go places and get an Alentejo red. They're known for Vino Verde, which is a young grape, which is a little sweeter, more sparkling wine. Their Vino Brancos or whites range everything from a sweet wine to maybe dry with kind of a sweet, woody back taste on them. So the wines, and they're inexpensive too. That's the thing. For a good Vino Verde, we pay maybe €3 a bottle. For a
€3 a bottle.
For a good Vino Branco, maybe €5 a bottle, and a good red, 3 to 5, and you can go up from there.
I don't know if you saw my post last week, I think, or maybe 2 weeks ago on Facebook. I posted a glass of wine for $15. So
Wow.
one glass. So yeah, and I was like, oh, to my European friends, what would this cost? And they're like, you can get a case for that.
Yeah, and it's don't get me wrong. You can go into a nice restaurant and pay $15 or $20 a glass for a good wine as well. But the little corner store up here, it's not the gourmet grocery either.
Right.
But
I've known to grab a handful of change out of the cup by the door and go buy a couple bottles of wine with it at the store on the other end of the block.
And it's great. And we like cooking at home and trying a lot of different things too. So a good meal at home will be something Portuguese or Indian or Thai or Chinese with a good wine, and that's fun too.
So where you live, can you walk to a pharmacy? Can you walk to the grocery?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're about 2 blocks. About the equivalent of 2 blocks away.
Yeah,
a doctor's office?
Well, your doctor's.
Yeah, I'm still going to the doctor over in Lisbon because I haven't transferred care over to this area yet. And I have one more appointment next week and then I'll transfer.
And I've been referred to the hospital here for care, for my treatment.
Oh.
But I just haven't gotten acceptance on that yet. So I'm still waiting for that. But I mean, we have an area about 2 blocks down the hill from us called Gil Vicente. So it's the square of Gil Vicente. And there is the Auchan market, the meat store, the farmacia, the fruteria, couple of visas, which you can go there and buy anything you ever need in your whole life. If it's not in the window, they don't have it. And there's a couple of cafes.
A couple of restaurants and cafes there. Our bank is about a block from there.
So everything is...
it's all walkable.
It's
very
all
close,
walkable and convenient. And you said how they have good public transportation.
Yes,
so
definitely.
They have what? Trains and planes and automobiles? And...
They actually do. So over in Lisbon, they have a nice underground subway system that gets you probably covers 2/3 of the city itself. And then, of course, there's buses and streetcars and
regional trains.
Regional trains if you want to go out to some of these other areas that we mentioned out by the beaches and Cascais and out to the ocean. Then there's a water taxi that goes from Lisbon over to here where we live, which is just an 8-minute ride. And then over on this side, there's a metro system, which is above ground, which has 3 lines that covers most of this larger city area. This city is about 175,000. Yeah, so it's not tiny.
And don't forget, it covers the funiculars too. We have the funiculars which go up the hill, like it's kind of like a cable car that goes up a hill.
Oh, I've seen one of those. We have 3 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 3 of those.
And the pass for us.
They make these tight turns, right?
Yeah, but you can buy a Metropolitano pass, and that pretty much cinches unlimited travel on all of those modes. For me right now, it's €40 a month for unlimited travel.
And mine is, as a senior, it's €20 a month for unlimited travel. So I basically get all of my travel for €20 a month. You know, there are a few times that we need to get someplace quicker than the transit will get us there, or we need to go someplace that's not on a bus line. And Uber and Bolt are readily available for usually four to 5, 6, 7 euros, almost anywhere you want to go.
What do they consider senior for
65.
Senior fare? 65?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm 2 weeks away.
And then
1 week away.
We both downloaded apps so that if you're, around town, you got to do a quick run here, and you don't want to do a bus or anything. We have scooters all around town, those little electric scooters. So you just scan that, hop on it, go where you want, and they charge it by the minute.
Charges you by the minute.
You can hop on, hop off of one of those. You got to do a wipeout at least once before you're, full.
Got to earn your stripes.
You got to earn your street cred. And we both wiped out.
Oh gosh!
But we jump on those a lot too. So
nobody gets hurt.
It's like getting on a bicycle for the first
Yep.
time.
I can fall off of that too.
Okay, so they have a great public transportation as well.
Definitely.
Everything is walking distance. Perfect. Sounds great. Tell us about the healthcare. I mean, is the healthcare, and how do you go about getting the healthcare? So when you get a visa, and we'll get into the visa situation as well. When you apply for a visa, aren't you required to purchase healthcare?
When you first come over on a visa, you have to have some sort of prepaid health insurance plan. So in our case, it was a travel plan with health insurance for the first 4 months. And then at the 4-month point, you will have an immigration appointment. And at that time, you get issued a residence card for your first 2 years of residency. So after that, you're eligible to be on the national healthcare system. So
after 4 months.
Yeah. Now we actually signed up for it before that, but they didn't make our accounts active, and until we had our residency. I mean, believe it or not, they actually gave us some care in the meantime, even, and didn't charge us for it or anything like that. Some prescription refills and things like that. They went ahead and did them because we were signed up, even though we weren't technically completely activated in the program yet. But now that we are, we have full health care just like everybody else.
So for the private, you only had to pay for 4 months?
We only paid for private care for 4 months.
Wow.
Now there is healthcare insurance available from private companies, but that's supplemental to your national healthcare system. Some people want to stay in a private system. You might get quicker service or things like that. You get to pick your doctors if you if you choose to do that. So you can basically buy what would be equivalent to an HMO in the States, so that you can kind of pick your own system to be in. But it's not necessary.
And as a couple, where in the States, if we had to purchase something like that, we'd probably maybe pay $1,000 or $1,400 a month for that kind of coverage. Here, that kind of coverage is €81 a month.
Wow. What a difference.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I was going to say it's disgusting.
Well, I guess it pays to point out that this is pretty much a socialist country.
Yes.
There's a lot of taxes to be paid, but there are also a lot of benefits for that.
Absolutely.
So education is one and healthcare is another. Like the U.S., they have a postal system that is run by a separate agency, but also affiliated with the government, similar to USPS, but not exactly. The infrastructure is really pretty good. When you consider that the United States is a few hundred years old and Portugal is a few thousand years old, right. They've had a long time to develop their infrastructure. The lights never go out here. The water is safe and drinkable everywhere.
Wow.
We haven't had a power outage since we've been here in 7 months. And it's got a great freeway system. I went to the other side of the country last weekend for the yoga retreat. Beautiful freeway system, although there was a toll on it. And I think it was about €16 each way to get across to the east side of the country, almost to Spain, and then back again.
Still.
But it's almost everywhere has underground power. You don't see power poles and power lines all over the streets. And
do you pay for the public health care at all?
The public health care is financed by the taxes. Tim mentioned a VAT tax, which is like a value-added tax, or what we would call a sales tax. And it's charged on everything. So virtually everything. When you buy your groceries and when you buy food in a restaurant, you'll be taxed per item anywhere from 13 to 23%, which sounds like a lot. However, all the advertised prices and the final price you pay includes the VAT tax. So when we talk about getting a couple of meals with wine for €17, that includes the tax. And some of that will be taxed at the low rate, the basic food stuffs, and then other things like sweets and wines and so forth will be taxed at the higher rate. So when we bought our condo, we paid several $1,000s out of pocket up front for the taxes.
The VAT tax.
So the healthcare system is paid for, at least in part, by the VAT tax that everybody pays on everything that you buy every day.
Okay, so you don't have a month. You don't have a month-to-month payment on the social medicine.
Not at all.
No.
Okay, it's all included in taxes. Very interesting. Very interesting.
and even the cost of medicine. I mean, with the things that I took in the States, even though it wasn't high healthcare stuff, it was just kind of standard maintenance stuff.
Right.
I pay maybe $145, $150 a month for my refills. Here, I've refilled them several times, and it's maybe €28.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
One reason is because all the medications are generics.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any branded, or if they are branded, they're like store brands, the generic branded medications. They're not the big pharma brands that we're used to seeing and paying
big
for.
Big pharma doesn't call the shots.
Well, that's what counts.
Big pharma, yeah.
That's what definitely counts. Getting back to the visa situation, what types of visas are available for immigrants, expats? I know there was a golden visa, and I think that was a little curtailed. Explain.
Yeah, the two most common ones are the golden visa, which requires an investment in the country of between 350,000 and 500,000 euros, whether you're buying a home or starting a business or investing in some other opportunity here. And you can do that just by buying a home. But where that changed in the last year is that they no longer allow that in the areas that have been so successful at attracting investments through the Golden Visa program. And that is specifically the Algarve and Lisbon, the Lisbon region, and Porto. the three places that are the most sought after
Right.
and popular no longer qualify for that. And that's because they were so popular and so successful. So now they will require those investments to be made in other parts of the country to help support them.
And I
And
kind of understand that too, because all the people all over the world started buying property up
Right.
in those areas, those popular areas, and then renting their property out as Airbnb, and kind of everything got, prices started climbing as well.
Well, and just to kind of interject too, if you read, and I've read a couple things, online here, some American written pieces that Americans are ruining this, and Americans are just flocking to Portugal, and Americans are blah blah blah. But the thing is, if you look at the actual stats of immigration within the country of Portugal, Americans are only about 6% of the overall influx of immigrants here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an off thing. It's really not true.
Right. It's a mixture, I would think, of also, Northern Europeans too,
Right.
coming from colder climates, coming to Portugal. It's pretty easy,
Right.
to vacation and stuff.
so the other visa program, and the most popular one, is called a D7, or commonly referred to as a retirees visa. And it doesn't require the same kind of investment up front that the golden visa program does. So if you have an income that is passive, like a retirement account or Social Security or some combination of those sorts of things, and I think they're even including digital nomads income, which is sourced from another country like the U.S., where you're bringing money into the Portuguese economy. They welcome you here. It does require some investment in a Portuguese bank account, which is equivalent to about 1 year's minimum income. What do they call that? They're
guaranteed.
Yeah, their minimum required income here is around, was it 700 euros a month?
Yeah.
So it would be like $9,000 for one person, and 50% more than that for a second. And I think it's about 30% per child if you bring a family over. So if you put $20,000 in a Portuguese bank account, and you have a sufficient income to support yourself, and they're not a criminal, then they will let you come in. There's certain requirements. You have to have registered with the finance department. You have to pass a background check. You have to have leased or purchased a place to live for the first year, and some common sense things like that.
Healthcare.
Yeah, bring your healthcare in for the first 4 months.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a sweet deal.
It's not bad.
$20,000 to have as a minimum in the bank account, it's pretty good compared to other countries.
But it's not. Let's just say it sounds like a sweet deal. It's easy to aim, but it is a lot of work. I mean, Dan is the project manager, and we felt like we were constantly for several months trying to hit a goal, get over a speed bump, or wait for the results of something.
Yeah.
It is a tedious thing to do. You just have to follow the rules. There aren't any shortcuts. And you do have to go to your local consulate and apply in person in most cases, at least in the Western United States. Each consulate in the country has their own rules, believe it or not. Right. Those of us on the West Coast of the United States have to actually go to San Francisco in person and apply for your visa and bring all your paperwork with you. And then you have to sit and wait for several weeks or even months for them to process that and get back with you. And yet, once it's processed, you have to be here within, I think it's 90 days. Okay. So you have to make your plans to go even before you have permission to go.
Right.
It's kind of a catch-22.
The bureaucracy is, I've heard, unsettling.
It is a little unsettling, but as long as you know that in advance, like we've had a couple glitches with the healthcare getting that started, and our immigration appointment was more than the 4 months it was supposed to take, but they're the ones that moved the appointment, not us. So then, that wasn't a problem. We just extended our healthcare policy for another month. It's not insurmountable.
Would you recommend hiring an attorney if somebody was trying to, get to Portugal from another country?
We've seen people do it without an attorney, and we did use an attorney, but that's because we really had no experience doing anything like this at all. Anything that you think you know about the legal system, forget it, because it's all different here. You need someone on this side of the pond that can advocate for you, get your bank account set up, get your finance number set up for you, read the contracts for your rental, read the contract.
Translate.
Right.
Yeah, read and translate all the contracts because they're all in Portuguese. So I think it's worthwhile. But like I said, there have been people that we know of that have done it without engaging an attorney, and they did just fine.
I think the biggest benefit for us with the attorney was that when we did go for our residency appointment, our SEF final appointment, she was there to represent us. She went into the meeting. She sat down with immigration, presented all the paperwork to them. So it was an easy exchange for her. And they just called us in for our photograph, our fingerprints, and our signature.
Easy peasy.
And we were done.
Easy peasy.
And even so much as though when we bought this flat, we felt so invested with her that we also used her services to go over our offer and our deed
Contracts and
everything.
all of that.
And she provided us with a translator
Wonderful.
when we went into close on the deal. So we weren't left out in the cold on anything.
What do you think of do you have any cons? Are there any cons about moving to another country or Portugal? What would you say? I mean, it can't be all roses.
Well, I don't, most of the cons don't really have anything to do with Portugal specifically. I mean, we miss people. It's tough being as far away as we are. Yeah. We're going to a family wedding next week, and it's a big step to get there and be back with our families and friends. So part of it's just distance, and that's not specific to Portugal.
Yeah, and I don't think the cons. I mean, I've seen some of these sites and some of these Facebook posts. It's like, God, I really wish I could find Northern toilet paper, or I really wish we could make lemon squares. And it's, it's an adventure. Find something different.
Right.
Find something new.
You're an immigrant.
That's right. We're immigrants.
Right.
And, and there are some things that we're used to having we can't find. You try finding cranberry juice in Portugal. It's nearly impossible.
Or a bagel.
Exactly.
With a schmear.
That's right.
Tirani coffee syrup or margarita mix. I mean,
can't find them.
Find
something. Find
new.
A substitute.
Right, exactly. You're in a different country. You have to realize you move there for a purpose, and you have to also realize that you're not in the United States anymore.
Exactly. But that was an intentional move on our part.
Right.
To come over here and complain that it's not like it. And it's funny because I don't even call that home anymore. I call it stateside because this is home.
That's right.
The mentality is this is home. The likelihood of us moving back to the United States is pretty slim.
Yeah, it seems like it gets slimmer as time goes on, for different reasons.
Yeah, definitely. And it's
some of these changes we've made, we would have made anyway at retirement. We downsize, we have a smaller place than we used to have, and we're living more simply. We probably would have done that anyway.
Right.
But doing it here is almost easier.
Right.
For one thing, it's a more advantageous cost of living.
And it's safer.
And it's safer.
But we can honestly say, when we were living stateside, I remember talking about that retirement thing because Dan was starting to burn out with everything that was going on. And I remember looking at him one night, we were sitting in the hot tub, and it was like, if we have to give this up tomorrow, I just said, it's okay. We're together, we're fine, we're healthy, it's okay. Right. And that kind of, I think for both of us, kind of was like a step, we should start talking about this. Because we kind of discovered that as we worked and continue to work, what we were really working for was the house payment and the pool and the 2 cars and the solar and the, you know, and it's kind of the quality of life. It's kind of like secondary.
And life's too short.
Life's too short.
Life is way too short. So are you guys both retired now?
Yes.
We both went back to the States after being here last year and decided it was time.
I'm so jealous.
I took early retirement, but you know, I'm that one that's kind of waffling. It's like, yeah, but it's going to be $100 more if I wait 3 more years, you know, that kind of thing.
That's where I am. That's exactly where I am. Too.
You know, he was just short of saying you're an idiot, but you know,
but I didn't.
But he didn't. But he convinced me, and it was like, yeah, that it's the right thing to do. It's the time, and it's the adventure, and it's like unlike a lot of couples, we really like each other, you know, and it's like, you know, and so we want to spend as much time together and see these things and do these things together too.
And now, and now you have the ability to just fly to Paris for an afternoon,
right?
Or go to Italy or go to Germany. There's so many opportunities and so many things open to you now that you didn't have before because of the distance.
Right.
So you can kind of like, it's to go back to the States. It is distance, and there is a issue with distance and seeing friends and stuff. But then again, you're opening up a whole new world to yourselves.
But it's not like it used to be, because I was an exchange student in the 70s, and you would wait like every 14 or 18 days, you get a little piece of blue paper, par avion with the airmail thing.
Right.
And now my mom, who's 86, we can FaceTime. So I can, and she said, when, we talked about moving, she said, oh, it's not like I'm never going to see you. She said, we can FaceTime, we can Zoom, we can do whatever we got to do. So I think that makes a difference too.
And you know what? I also discussed this with my husband. I said, how often do we see family in person
right.
or friends that were back east? It's very rare, so it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
You can FaceTime and text and do all that stuff.
Well, and when you really want to see somebody, they can come over here, or you can go over there. We've already had lots of house guests.
Yeah.
So it's not like that's impossible.
Right.
It's kind of funny because when we were this kind of how we think goes back to Portland, because at one time Dan and I were, you introduced us and talked about the Fontaine where we lived. It was a beautiful 1-bedroom condo. It was a 975 square foot 1-bedroom condo. And we were talking about it. We really wanted to make the jump, but I was really concerned that when my parents came, it'd be tough. It's 1 bedroom. There's not a second guest room. And I talked to my mom about it. I said, well, we're really thinking about it, because when you and Dad come, and my mom said, if you're going to give up a place like that for us to come maybe once a year,
right,
you're an idiot.
Right.
And it's, okay, so there's a way around it. So we figured that, how can we make it work? And we did. And that's kind of how we are here. And it's getting, okay, we'll make it work.
And we actually have 2 bedrooms here. So we do have a guest room. So anytime you want to show up, just let us know.
Thank you. Thank you. So in wrapping up, what would you say to our audience if they're thinking about relocating to Lisbon?
Come and check it out. It's an easy place to get to. There are lots of international flights. There are multiple international airports. And it's easy to get around. It's comfortable. There's no end to the sights to see and the places to visit while you're here.
And, if you're doing it yourself, why are you waiting? If you're doing it as a couple, scout it out, be on the same page.
Yeah.
But don't wait too long to jump, because it's like we said, it's kind of you get up yesterday morning, you're 22 years old, you wake up this morning, you're 65. It's like, what happened?
Exactly.
So life is short, and life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
Yeah.
So if you have a chance to live somewhere as beautiful as this, come see why.
And if you come and check it out and it's not your cup of tea, well, you've still had a wonderful vacation.
Exactly.
That's it. And you can go on to the next place and check out the next place.
Exactly.
But I definitely agree with both of you. You're great. And thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
Well, you're welcome.
definitely enlightening. There's a lot of people out there that are interested in moving to Portugal, Lisbon especially. It's like one of the top places on the list for immigrants and expats. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting how many listeners we'll get on this one, and I'm sure we will. So thank you guys again, and we will talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and consider making a donation by clicking the coffee cup on any page at www.wheredogaysretire.com. Each cup of coffee that you buy costs $5 and goes towards helping us continue the podcast. Thank you for your continued support.